Welcome to episode 11 of Legal Content Chat. Today is a very exciting day because not only do I have a really cool guest for you, but also, guys, I have new wallpaper behind me. So those of you can see, it's a very exciting day for me because I have my own office now. Anyway, as you know, every week I have a fantastic guest in the legal space who is guaranteed to be dropping knowledge bombs all over the place. So that will help you with your business and how you move forward. And we always want to talk about something really exciting, which is what we're going to do today. So I'm your host, Becky. And if you don't know what I already do, I'm happy to give you a little lowdown. I'm a legal business marketer and copywriter. So that means I help establish businesses like legal tech businesses and also legal startups, legal professionals and consultants and anybody in the legal area. So it means I write blog contents, website content, and all digital content to help you rank better. That means you get more eyes on your content and get more clients. Everybody is a winner. So without further ado, because it's not all about me, it's all about my lovely guest today. And before I forget to say that I normally do forget to say, please feel free to pop your comments and your questions in the box and we will get to them as soon as we have a break in the conversation. That's if we're not yabbering on. So, Helen, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. It's great to be here. Thanks so much, Becky. I guess so. I was a lawyer for quite a long time. I worked internationally, but I suppose I was mainly based in London. I started off at Linklaters and I was there for about 5 or so years. And then I ended up at London City Firm, was in King, where I made partner at 6 years qualified. But sort of on that journey, I actually also retrained as a psychotherapist. Then I retrained as a coach. And now I coach lawyers and other professionals on performance, well-being, how not to burn out, and how to reach the top. So that's what I do every single day now.
Very cool. So we're going to be talking today about how being yourself can actually make you more successful in law, which is something that I see across all of your LinkedIn content. And that's definitely the aura that comes across with you. So is this a topic quite close to your heart?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I find it quite strange to think, I appreciate that we'll get into it. There are all sorts of barriers, but that we wouldn't be ourselves, I just think it's, the first thing I say on my strapline of LinkedIn is, be the most powerful version of you, or the best version of yourself. So I think that's what I said, to misquote myself, be the best version of you. But it's about being you because, insofar as you're trying to be something else, somebody else, something different, you're cutting yourself at the knees. You can't be the next person, but that's totally fine because it's about recognizing your strengths and then optimizing them to, be your, happiest, your most fulfilled and, the most successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So were there any specific challenges that happened in your experience that prompted you to retrain?
So I mean, I think, gosh, it's quite a long story, but I'll sort of, try and put it into a nutshell that might be useful for people. I mean, I think so. I started off in the city properly about 2013. I was applying for my training contracts back in 2010, 2011. So I think the world's quite a different place now, but, we're still very much in this, how can I put it, environment across the city in finance and law where everybody's working really, really hard. Everyone's working to the bone, And as soon as I started in the city, I think I just saw this world, in my law firm, outside of my law firm, where, people are working 24/7 around the clock. Now, I have no problem with whatever anyone wants to do. But at the same time, I was seeing a lot of people burn out. And I think that's quite hard to witness when you see people who aren't happy, who are burning out, who aren't reaching their potential, who aren't feeling fulfilled. And a few years into my career, I was sort of, I suppose, troubled enough by this that I really wanted to think about, how can I actually potentially make a difference to truly help people in this respect, or particularly lawyers, because that's, the environment I was in. So long story short, at that time, actually, I quit the job in the law firm I was at. I wasn't happy. That wasn't Linklaters. That was another one after that. I didn't stay there very long. And I ended up on a yoga retreat in Scotland finding my soul and all the rest of it. And it was there that then I found, heard of the psychotherapy masters I ended up doing, which was 4 years long. So I completely trained as a psychotherapist. I did my training at Priory Hospital and everything. Never actually wanted to be a therapist. But sort of alongside that journey, I ended up also at Rosalind King. I worked part-time. I became a partner. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, I've trained as a therapist. Excuse me. I understand mental health. I understand well-being. I understand what it takes to succeed. I understand what it takes to reach the top in law. Let's all start doing this a bit differently. And that was when I also trained as a coach. And now I kind of try to pull all that together in quite a unique way so that, we can start to do things differently. And on that point, I think post-pandemic, we're in this wonderful new era where actually I of working, different perspectives, different ways of looking at things, they're all so much more at the forefront. It's changed the world, and I think we can see it across LinkedIn. We can see it with big voices. I mean, I love the work of Stephanie Costi and all that workplace bullying stuff. It's like people are speaking up now. People want something different.
Yeah, I was just about to mention Stephanie, who I had to chat with a couple of weeks ago now, and she was very much trying to break the mold and trying to explain that actually you don't have to nearly kill yourself in a job. There's a very old traditional kind of idea that, when you join a law firm, you're at the bottom and basically, everybody's gonna shit on you, for want of better phrase. And it's just part of almost a rite of passage. But now speaking to you and speaking to people like Stephanie, you realize that actually that's a really outdated way of working, and it's not sustainable.
I mean, I think it's an interesting one, right? Because if we're getting really honest about the way the legal sector works, so sort of in many firms, it works with high junior lawyers. Now, who am I to criticize anyone's way of doing it? Some people accept really high paychecks, or they want the prestige of the firm because that's the way they want to be, and all credit to them. Like if that's what you want to do with your life and you're passionate about it and you're happy working crazy hours, whatever, like that's totally fine. But I think equally, to be successful, you do not have to put yourself through that, and not just that, I think long term, it's a marathon and not a sprint. And if you're not careful, there's a really high chance you'll burn out.
Yes. Okay, I see. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you help professionals to really kind of step away from those industry norms and your approach with that?
I mean, I think it depends on what people want. I think that's what it always comes down to. I'm not trying to, how can I put it? I know what's right for me and I live my life. I think as a coach, like I'm not trying to change anyone or, write their future for them. Quite the opposite. It's for them to come to me and say, well, actually, this is kind of a bit of a problem for me, or this is a bit of an issue, or I'm not happy here. Like I want to do something about it. And it's for me to help them come from a really empowered place in terms of understanding, what it is that's going to leave them happy and fulfilled. So I think what happens a lot, at least from an authenticity standpoint, is that a lot of the time, particularly in law, we've got type A personalities, we've got really hard workers, we've got high achievers, and, they've got really strong inner critics. Most people in law, if not all, bar a couple of maybe huge exceptions, most people actually are massive imposters. They don't believe they're good enough. They don't believe they should be there. So from an authenticity perspective, it's like, well, sort of on some level thinking I can't have what I want. And actually just to get by, I have to pretend that I'm something I'm not, So I think it's helping people really understand who they are, what their strengths are, and actually understand that they don't need to be ruled by their limiting beliefs. Those are not absolute truths at all. They're just voices in your head that are psychologically hardwired into your system. So I think it's about helping people understand themselves, understand their psychology, and understand how they're holding themselves back. Because at the end of the day, your career is your choice and you're in the driver's seat. So at some point, I think it's about stepping up, accepting that responsibility to yourself and thinking, well, what do I truly want for myself? How am I going to make that happen?
Yeah, and I think that's really valuable that you are there to actually, question that inner voice and say, like, this isn't actually how things have to be, because a lot of people, you know, on this topic I've heard from, it just almost seems like they feel quite powerless. And that's actually a really good point, just to remember that this is your career. This is, you get to choose what you accept and what you don't accept. So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it's your career, but it's also your life, you know. And I think it's almost easy to, how can I put it, step back and be like, oh, I'm powerless, or I can't do anything about it. This is your life, nobody else's, you know. And sometimes it's difficult to come to that, because actually within that, there can often be a bit of a process in terms of thinking, oh gosh, you know what, actually I've got to step up a bit here, or I've got to face myself. That's not always easy. No. It's easy to blame other people.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a challenging thing, and I know that myself from you know, having some therapy and stuff over the years, that it's not always easy to actually look internally and think like, okay, so it might just be me here, this is something I need to look at a bit more deeply, and people aren't always ready for that, are they?
Exactly. And I mean, I think, you know, in law it's pretty tough at times, because you can be working in really difficult firms. There are a lot of toxic environments, toxic bosses. I'm not saying that's anyone's fault, and often at the junior end that can be really difficult, because maybe you don't have other options. And at that point, I think it's all about thinking about, you know, your career, what's the best, like, damage limitation, damage control, but not accepting that has to be your forever, you know. So I'm not saying it's all on the person, but at the same time, there's something about, I think, taking ownership of as much as you can, because that means you're coming from an empowered place rather than a disempowered place.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a couple of questions from the audience, which is lovely. One is a LinkedIn user, so I don't know who you are, I'm afraid, but feel free to pop your name in the chat. So just some agreement, I guess, with what we've been saying, which is the danger that working extreme hours, which I admit I did in the past, is damaging to your health, not to mention your relationships, because it does impact the whole of your life, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's huge. I mean, I think we need to look at it from sort of a physiological and mental perspective. You know, the effects on your body of working extreme hours, not getting enough exercise, maybe not getting enough sunlight, your circadian rhythm being mucked up, you know, not getting enough sleep. All of these things are linked to poor mental health. You know, the science is there. I'm not going to bore you with it. The science is there. And of course, you know, it's all linked. So, you know, I'm now a big fan of my Whoop band. I can see my recovery every single day. But I think it's one of these things about realizing, you know, what the way you are living every single day. If you're under extreme pressure, if there is toxicity, it's going to have an impact.
Oh, you've started something now, the Whoop band. I really want one of these. I think I keep listening to Stephen Bartlett, and his voice is just keeps going like, oh, whoop, whoop, whoop. So I feel like I'm being internally pressured to get one. Is it really good?
Honestly, I can't start talking about it, because I'll be talking about it for the next 45 minutes. I'm so excited by this, and you get a month free. It's a month free trial, right? But it's amazing, right? For everyone out there, I'm just 30 seconds. It looks at, you know, it looks at your sleep, so your how much sleep you need, your deep sleep, your REM sleep. It looks at your respiratory rate, your heart rate, when you're exercising enough, your recovery rates, and it tells you how to recover better. Like, honestly, if you're thinking about your mental and physical health, you know, and you're at work and you want to see, you know, when you're most stressed and keeping your stress levels in check, these are brilliant. So I should get paid for this, but
you should. Yeah,
I love it.
Maybe we should see if we can get a sponsor for my show. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
So
I've become
than
an unofficial ambassador.
Yeah,
do you know what? I never use my Apple Watch. This is so much more detailed. Yeah, it's so much better. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Sorry, everyone.
Okay. Well, that was a slight little product plug.
I just wish I was getting paid for it.
I know. Clara said same with Whoop. Really thinking of getting one. Okay, well, maybe we've convinced.
Get one, Clara. Get one.
But back to the questions. So, Jono, happily, I did say to him before this, I was like, please come on with questions, and he has. So thanks for that. Do you think the perceived status of law and certain firms in particular drive some of those behaviours, i.e., external validation?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the thing is, right, is the top law is a hugely, like, prestigious profession, right? The top law firms, I mean, there is so much prestige that goes into that. So you've got a lot of people who all the way through their schooling, I think particularly if they've been to private schools, have been told this is what you need to be successful: get good grades, go to university, go to the top universities, end up in a law firm. That means success, you know. So I think you know, you've got a lot of people being funneled through, a lot of, and you know, and even if they haven't come from that background, they're sort of, you know, going to be so grateful for having got there because it's, you know, so extremely prestigious. And it's going to be sort of needing that, you know. I think we have this problem psychologically that we go through school and we're told, well, if you do well, you get an A, you know, if you do well at university, you get a 2-1 or you get a first. And then at work, it's like people are still looking for that. It's like, I need someone else to validate me. I need someone else to tell me I'm a good lawyer, that I'm a good human. And actually the real difficulty for people often is that at work, you don't get A grades anymore. You may even do a great job, but have a boss who doesn't like you and you get a crap appraisal, you know. And so I think this is such a huge problem among so many lawyers seeking that external validation. I was there for so many years and it's a painful place.
Yeah, okay, thanks Jono, for that one. We've got a question about your transition from the legal sector to coaching and therapy. So you mentioned you spent a few years studying to make this change, 4 specifically, I think. How did you handle doubts and regrets about leaving a high-paying job for an uncertain path? And also, how did you manage to sustain yourself financially while this was happening?
Gosh, okay, that's a big question, isn't it?
It's a big question.
let me just take this question in. Right, yeah. How did I handle the doubts and regrets? I mean, I guess you're presuming I have doubts and regrets.
That's a big
I'm a very happy person now. No, I mean, I think at that point I'd known for a few years it just wasn't right for me, the way you know, law in the way that I was practicing it. Had I stayed in law, I think I would have probably moved to family law or something where I was just dealing with people on a more everyday level and sort of feeling as though I was truly helping people. You know, I'm not saying I didn't help people in my role, but I was dealing with big companies or corporations or things like that. I had my head stuck in documents all day. It just somehow on a deep level wasn't me. And I'd known this for a very long time. So I knew I wanted a change there. Yeah, it was hard changing. It took the thing is, this took a long time. I started my psychotherapy masters when I was like, what was it? 3 years qualified or something. I left law at maybe 7 years qualified. So it wasn't just an overnight flick of the switch decision. You know, it was actually something that so when I went to Roslin King, I worked 3 days a week. And by the way, I mention this because hopefully it might empower some other people as well. I became senior associate on 3 days a week. I became a partner on 3 days a week. I chose to actually pull extra hours quite a lot of the time, but I didn't have to do that. That was my choice. So, you know, it wasn't just an overnight decision. Having said that, I had so many people who doubted me. I had a lot of people who told me I was making the worst decision of my life. My uncle wrote me a really long email to tell me I was totally screwing up my life. I was leaving, you know, the law, being a law firm partner. You know, I truly respect his opinion. I was grateful for his viewpoint because I genuinely want to hear different viewpoints of people I really trust and look up to. But that was hard, you know. But equally, deep down in my heart of hearts, I knew it was right. Financially, changing direction, this is extremely difficult. I mean, you do go from a really secure, high-paid salary to the Wild West at the beginning. I mean, anyone who started a business, unless they already had a work stream set up, will know it's just crazy at the beginning. And, you know, there isn't a lot of cash flow necessarily. But, you know, as time's gone on, you know, that's not the case anymore. So, I mean, now I think I still have a very different mindset. I can see from probably a lot of lawyers in that I think, you know, I'm being a bit stereotypical here, but I think a lot of lawyers are quite risk averse and thinking, well, I need to have that security, as are a lot of people, and it depends on your situation. But I think I have quite a sort of entrepreneurial mindset in that I'm like, I can live with quite a high level of risk, you know, calculated risk. So it's always felt okay for me.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. That's really interesting, and that must have been really hard to hear from close family members who, you know, just assumed that you were throwing your life away, as it were. Because I mean, I guess the perception for a lot of people is that, okay, you've made it as a law firm partner, like that's it, that's the pinnacle, like there's nowhere to go from there. Why on earth would you be throwing all of that away? So I think that message is really important to get out there, that there are other options, first of all, and there are other ways to grow your career, and that's not where it has to end.
I think so. And also, just to add to that point, which I think often surprises people, it was never my ambition to be a law firm partner. I was asked by my firm to be a partner. It was that way round. It wasn't on my radar. So now the way that I help people is because I can, in retrospect, see all the things you need to do, and I was actually doing them naturally, but it wasn't like I had this big ambition. For me, it was just like, oh, okay, that thing happened, so that surprises a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I see. So we've got some other questions coming through. They're coming through thick and fast now. I won't have time for
God.
This great guys. We'll be here all day. But so okay. So Becky has said, different Becky. So interesting. Thank you. I'm a 20+ year IP lawyer, trained with DLA. Also did a long stint in house and doing contract work. I'm now doing an ICF course to retrain as a PCC coach. There are a lot of acronyms in there. Everything you say is so true. Lawyers are the world's worst at admitting they can't. Also, so many never have time to make a change, yet the change is so needed. I'm excited to pick up more clients and see where they get to taking the time to pause, reflect, and really think.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really excited for your journey, Becky, and best of luck with that. It sounds really exciting. So yeah, good luck with your accreditation.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you for that. Zara's popped in just to say her experience has been that some firms don't want you to be yourself. So that's going back to the authenticity piece, isn't it, really? And I guess that is part of it, isn't it?
What's that? Sorry, that my experience with some firms don't want you to be yourself. I think when firms pay you a lot of money, they love you and they expect that, and that's part of it. That's one of the things I love actually about being an entrepreneur now, is that as much as I probably work more now than I used to as a lawyer, quite honestly, but my time is my own and I'm in control of my life. And I think that's one of the hardest things in the legal profession, the pressures on lawyers. You've kind of, to a certain extent, always got the sword of Damocles hanging above you, in the sense that, that client email could come in, your boss might message, etc. And then, suddenly your weekend gets taken away. Now, this is the whole thing around what kind of firm you choose to work at, right? Not all bosses are going to do that, or they'll only do that if literally all hellfire breaks loose. You'll have other people who, well, that's every single Friday afternoon. I've been there. It's not pretty. So it's a difficult one. And I think, firms, firms are ultimately profit driven. And I think this is where it's really important to get clarity on your values and align yourself with a firm that shares similar values, because otherwise they'll want you to give them a lot of money. You're a fee earner, you charge your money, you charge your billable hours, and that's how you, unfortunately, I think this is all a bit warped, but at the moment, based on a sort of billable hour structure, and I'm not necessarily against the billable hour, but I think that's the thing, your value is seen in 6-minute increments and in your capacity and in your utilization. Problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a conversation with Sonne Erton just before Christmas. She works at the legal studio, and she was sort of alluding to that, really, because I know that she has ADHD, and she specifically wanted to find a firm that would align with her, not only her values but also her needs in the workplace. And we spoke quite a lot about that as well, which was a really interesting conversation. And she really took her time to do her due diligence as well on the firm that she wanted to work with, because she knew that they could align with her, and they could. And once you've got happy people that work, you're going to be so much more productive, aren't you? So it's a win-win for everybody.
I mean, I think that's the goal. Happy people. I don't know how many law firms have happy lawyers. That's it. We should do a survey.
We should. We absolutely should, shouldn't we? Or maybe not.
Well, I think Law Care's tried that, haven't they, with their sort of, well, I mean, it's quite shocking, isn't it? Quite honestly, when you look at all the sort of mental health stats among lawyers. And what's interesting is this is global. And I was actually thinking about this, Becky, because I was thinking, we should do one at some point that's later in the day, because we're too early in the day to pick up all the US and Canadian lawyers. I have messages from some of them, because I think what's so interesting is all the issues we're talking about here are not just UK centric. I work with lawyers internationally. I work with lawyers in Switzerland and Europe, the Middle East, Australia, the US, Canada. How have we got such big global problems here? How are we in this mess?
Yeah, yeah, you are right. And we should definitely do that. We should schedule something for later in the day so our international friends can join as well. Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that. Very good point. Very good point. So we've had
Yeah.
Caroline pop into the chat and she's saying, "Hi ladies, really interesting discussion." So thank you for that. As somebody who works for an ALSP, we offer legal professionals flexible hours and remote working opportunities. And the feedback we've had from our legal talent is incredible. We often hear from people who say it's been life-changing, particularly for women who have family commitments. So she's just commenting that's a great alternative to the traditional law firm route. And obviously that's something that is more and more prevalent nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just great to hear. And I think thanks so much for sharing that, Caroline, for anyone to read the comments, because I think, depending on what part of law you're in, you can feel quite siloed. Like, I certainly sort of didn't ever really know much about the sort of ALSP route. And I think for a lot of people out there feeling a bit lost in their careers, it's really great to hear these success stories and to hear of, companies and people who really care. So that warms my heart. Thanks, Karen.
Awesome. And John has just piped in with chasing other people's dreams, not your own, is very counterproductive. So that is great insights as always.
Yeah.
And Becky's come back in to say that many legal roles also don't work well for women once they become mums. So you end up feeling like you're failing either as a parent or as an employee, or perhaps even both. And I know I've definitely felt that way when my children were young, although not in the legal industry, but I think that is something that spans every industry, or it used to, and happily that is now changing. So
I think that's such a big one. This opens up a huge topic, doesn't it? I mean, I work with a lot of women who are returning from maternity leave, and I think it's such a huge issue around, confidence, sort of trying to hide the fact that you're, going to pick up your kids from school, or thinking, feeling sort of as though, oh, I've been out of it for a year, or, my boss isn't approving of the fact that, what was it? I had one client, they basically spoke about her having had some sort of time off, but I think they described it as kind of made it sound like a holiday. She's like, I haven't been on holiday, like, completely mad. And I think also this really opens up a really interesting and important point in the legal sector, which is close to my heart as well, around why there aren't that many women equity partners. We've got around about 20%, I think, average across the industry, or last time I checked it might be about 25, it might be a bit less than that for salaried, but this is the thing, we've got more women than men trainees coming in, and associates, we've got I think overall more female lawyers, but at the senior levels that isn't filtering through. It's like, what's happening here, and I think motherhood and having children, it's a huge it holds a lot of women back in their careers. It just should not be the case. It really shouldn't.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Zara obviously does as well. She said, so much flexibility you need as a mum, but you get a lot of grief from other women when in an employed role, or if you need to arrange something to do with your children. And I know I've certainly felt like that in my career. And I think that's something that COVID did bring. Definitely something positive to the party there, because I remember so many times having to take holiday when one of my children was sick and I need to pick them up from school, and then you panic because you don't have any holiday left to actually go on holiday. And it's one of those situations that's really difficult. So I know working for myself is amazing, because now I can just pick up the children if I need to and really work around them. But I think when you're in a traditional working environment, it can be perceived as you're taking time off when you're really not.
And I think that it's just such an interesting topic, this, because I think we've got the issues around sort of, working parents being discriminated against, even in like really, it's often in really unobvious ways, isn't it? Like, as you say, you took the holiday there because it's like, oh gosh, well, I shouldn't be just taking time off, etc. But then you have none left, and it's like the positions people are putting themselves in. And then I think we've also got issues around, I've sort of felt it myself, not having children, where it's like, I can't ask for a bit of time off there, or I need, something happens, and it's like, well, actually, what's your reason? And it's like, well, I'm working however many hours or whatever it is, or I think it comes back to, oh gosh, I can't remember, it was Stephanie's post actually from a day or two ago, I think, saying about the 4-day working week, and I sort of said, well, this, it's like you need an excuse. And she was saying something about people saying, oh, do you have children if you're doing a 4-day week? And it's absolutely not a day off, obviously, if you have children. It's not that many. Like, well, why do we need an excuse? And also, like, how can we have more parity across the board for people?
Yeah, I did see that post actually that she put up about the 4-day week, and that was very interesting for sure. So it's something that I think we're going to see more of, but it feels like it's a slow to progress kind of concept.
Absolutely.
So guys, you've given me a little bit of a gap in the questions. I'm going to go back to my questions now, if that's okay for a moment. So you mentioned that to be yourself in the workplace, it's important to distance yourself from people who might not see your true value. So have you got any actionable tips that you help your clients with on how to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's about looking at your career a little bit like a game. It could be all sorts of different games. It could be a game of chess, whatever. But it's like you need to be thinking several steps ahead, and you need to be thinking about how things happen. And often, because we're so busy doing our jobs and just working away, we don't think about this. So it's thinking about, if you want to get promoted and do well, you need the backing of people more senior than you. Or you just generally need to be probably pretty liked by your team. I mean, there are exceptions to this, right? I get it. If people are like, you get the sort of a-hole rainmaker equity partners and all of that, and lots of problems connected. But essentially, you need to have the backing of the right people. If you don't have the backing of the right people, how are you going to get there? So if you've got a boss or people around you who don't believe in you, who undervalue you, who don't see your worth, how on earth are you in this game going to be the one who's chosen for promotion? So if you're in a firm and you're like, this person who I'm working with on this particular case or matter isn't valuing me, what can you do to try and fill up your time working with the people you do want to work with? And I remember I spent time, I used to pinpoint the people I wanted to work with based on several factors. It used to be, for example, they were doing the type of work I wanted. They were people who I thought I could learn a lot from. And often they were people in positions of high power, because I knew that was most advantageous to me. You've got to play the game, right? So I would lobby them. I'd just pop around their office now and again, or in the mornings, or pop by, say, hello, how are you? How was your weekend? Oh, by the way, if you do have any case come in, I'd love to work on something with you. I just love the work you do, etc. You get known. And then you busy your time up. So, oh my gosh, I'm at full capacity doing the work I want to do rather than stuff I don't want to do. I mean, you can get just lumbered internally with somebody who's making your life hell. At that point, you've got to think about what you do. Is it for a finite amount of time, in which case maybe it's bearable? Does it get to the point where maybe you have to speak to someone more senior and just say, I just feel like actually I need to vary what I'm doing a bit, and work with some other people. Ultimately, if people in your firm do not see you as senior material and there's just not going to be that career progression, you need to look elsewhere. And I think this brings me to a point actually about partnership, where a lot of people think, oh, maybe I'm on the path to partnership. And by the way, I'm talking a few years in. Obviously, at 1 year qualified, you're not going to know. But if you don't know whether you're on the path to partnership, you're not. Basically, it's I hate to be that blunt about it. Like, I know I said, for example, they asked me, or I didn't know, but actually I remember in the interview I had with that firm, the managing partner looked at me and she said, you could be a partner here. That first interview, she believed in me. She backed me from the very first day she met me.
Wow.
And I think that's what people don't realize. It's like, oh, maybe they're going to make me up. It's a bit like when you're going on a date, you're dating someone, you're like, maybe they're going to make me their girlfriend. Well, have they asked you?
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that. If you don't know you're on the track for partnership, you're not, because you don't know.
Or at least if you're really not sure and you don't just want to quit and leave, it's like, at least ask, get some clarification. This is your career. This is your life. You have every single right to ask those questions. And then if they're being vague with you, then it's your choice as to what you do, isn't it? Take back the power.
Yes. No beating about the bush here, guys. So Wayne's just popped into the comments to say that he's pleased that he's from Wilson Brown Solicitors, which is local to me. I'm pleased to say that 61% of our partners are women. So regional law firms, I believe, are different. As for large law firms, been there, done that. Horrible, horrible environments, even for a male. Yeah, you heard it from the male horse's mouth there, so to speak. We've had a comment from Claire as well. Thank you, Claire, for supporting again. You're a delight. You mentioned being stuck in a silo. I think the advent of social media makes it much easier for everyone to see beyond their immediate horizons and feel confident, perhaps relieved that there are other better options for a career path, as well as the means to build the connections to get them there. So yeah, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, but we're in a different world from when I started out. I mean, even for new lawyers coming through, they've got like the corporate law academy, the commercial law academy, you know, these platforms with huge resources around, you know, what it's like to be a lawyer, how to be commercially aware, how to do interview prep, interview questions. And I think now what's amazing is I'm only just really starting to branch out into the lawyer Instagram world. There's a lot of people in the US who have massive accounts, you know, but it's like seeing all of these lawyers doing all these different things. And even on LinkedIn, and I'm looking at some of the people I'm connected with now, being like, oh, I kind of wish I'd been a personal injury lawyer, or, you know, I think you just see so much more. It's great. It really is.
Yeah, and you're definitely getting on board with the video content, because I'm loving it on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So I definitely applaud you for that. It's some really great content.
Oh, thank you. The annoying thing about LinkedIn on that is it just doesn't push videos on the algorithm. So it discourages people from doing videos, but that's a whole thing in itself. Hopefully that might change, because I personally feel like video content is the way that you can truly connect with the authentic person being on this subject.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, that is a shame that doesn't come across, but certainly Instagram you can definitely use for the video, and that comes across really nicely. So yeah, all good.
Yeah.
So still on the same sort of topic about being yourself at work, but what about networking? What about that kind of area? How can people be themselves there, and what's your experience?
Oh gosh, networking is what I live and I breathe at the moment. So people are getting spammed with my networking tips at the moment. So networking is just, well, first of all, it's just so key for everything we've spoken about, because you can't get promoted the right people. How do you get the backing of the right people? You have to network with them. I think network suddenly makes it sound like this sort of scary, weird thing, but actually you're just building relationships with people. That's literally it, you know. So internally, you need to be building this strong network. Externally, you need to be building this strong network. You need to be winning clients, because otherwise you won't make partnership. Even if you're in-house, in fact, in some ways, maybe more so, if you work inside a company, you have to be a really great networker, because that's how you're going to do your job really well, understanding how the business works and connecting people from all over, you know. And as a lawyer, I think understanding the vast array of different legal issues. And I think in terms of not being yourself networking, I mean, you know, who's going to want to hang out with someone who's being a bit stilted and not themselves? You know, you want to feel as though you get on with someone and you like them, and you know, it feels easy. And I think this also brings us back to the point where if you feel you're not being authentic in yourself because maybe you wouldn't be liked, or you're not good enough, or something like that, my gosh, that is a heavy mental burden to carry all the time. It's like you're sort of trying to keep up this screen in front of you of, look how perfect I am, and plaster over the cracks as and when they come up. But actually, your true strength as a person, and this comes across more and more as you step into leadership, is in your presence. It's when you really take ownership of who you are and your strengths and your weaknesses and everything about you. And there is a sort of comfort within that, and acceptance of yourself. And I think, you know, we can all feign charisma and try and be something, but actually you feel it when someone walks into a room and they have a deep and strong presence, you know, and that's because they are in their own energy, they're in themselves. So I think it's a necessity.
I love that. I go to quite a few networking events locally, one organised by Wayne's firm, actually, which is a networking event. And there's a lot of solicitors there that work in firms, big firms, but yet they're coming out of their firm, these solicitors, just to kind of interact and mingle with people. And I think it's a great way to build their personal brand, which I think is good for them and it's good for the company as well. And I reckon a couple of years ago we just wouldn't have seen people working in a firm doing that kind of thing, but now it's happening more and more, and I think it's a really good, a valuable thing to see.
That's so great to hear. And I think, like, we were all locked away for so long. I I think we're
We
all
were.
just desperate to now just meet each other and have a cup of coffee and be real and normal. And I think that's why events like this, I know we're online today, but it's like, it's alive. It's not, maybe some people will watch it back, but there's something about just like actually connecting in the present moment and that being real, you know. At least for me, that's the case.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So this is the lovely little segue into your networking mastermind. It was almost seamless there. You don't get a free whoop, I'm afraid. But do you want to tell us about your networking mastermind, Helen? That's on offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I try and give away so much free content because I just want to help as many people as I possibly can. And I think if you haven't seen it already, you can check it out on my LinkedIn profile. I've got like a sort of infographic networking 10-step cheat sheet. I can't even say it, but I'm really proud of that. But it's totally free. You can just go grab it, you know. And I think it's so imperative to your career that you start thinking about this. That's why I just want to share as much info as possible. The networking masterclass is 90 minutes long. It's on the 20th of February. It's at 6:30 p.m. GMT. So that also covers all the American time zones as well. But what it means is like you essentially come away with your sort of 10-step networking blueprint. You have a workbook, like I've really thought about this, and you'll come away with something completely tangible that you can completely put into action straight away afterwards, you know. And it doesn't matter what stage of your career you're at, but we sort of do a whistle-stop tour of everything you need to be thinking about, you know, thinking about your career vision, your business plan, your elevator pitch, what's your USP, you know, how are you going to go and get the clients, the contacts that you need and want. And then you literally have it there for you in a plan, which you can take away afterwards. And the reason I'm so passionate about this, and, you know, I'm not just plugging something for the sake of it, I do a lot of different things in my business, is because I know this is the key, which is going to get you to the top. You know, I've made it to partner myself and I know what it takes. And I just see day in, day out, so many lawyers failing to get there because they have missed building blocks. So I'm just really sort of trying my best on an everyday level, but also particularly in that masterclass to help people bridge that gap and, you know, be as successful as they can be.
Awesome. That is the 20th of February at 6:30, did you say?
That's right, yeah. And I think your dog approves, so it must be
oh, she does.
a good thing.
I know, honestly.
Yeah.
My husband's just come home from work.
Oh, she's very excited then.
Okay, so how can people register? How can they get in touch with you? What's the best thing to do?
I mean, I can drop a link in the comments actually just after this. Actually, I could do that just in a minute when you're talking. But essentially, it's on my website, which is helenpamely.com. It's on my LinkedIn profile in the featured section in one of the blocks. You can also DM me if you're just a bit confused and can't find any of that. I'm totally cool to drop you the link. Yeah, if you are interested, it should be a really good session. And as I say, like everything I try and do, like speaking of authenticity, it's coming from a place of actually trying to create something new in the market that, you know, actually does the job of what we need it to do. You know, people want to reach the top, people want to understand how to network, how to build that book of business. Well, here's your solution.
Perfect. Oh, amazing. Yeah, get on it, people, get on it. So if one of you or all of you fancy being in Helen's hot seat today, I am always open to talking to more potential guests, and hopefully Helen will agree it's a very pleasant space to be in the hot seat today. So feel free to hit me up and let me know if you do want to be involved in one of my LinkedIn lives. There are 3 requirements though, people. Okay, so these are the 3 things that need to happen. First of all, you must work in the legal industry. Second of all, you must be interesting in some way or other. And third of all, I must like you. So yeah, there you go. Those are your 3 criteria. So yeah, I mean, you know, if I don't like you, then we're not going to be having a conversation. That's the end of that. So yeah,
I'm really
tick all those boxes.
I made it.
Oh, come on. I'm always dropping you DMs all the time saying let's be best friends. So I'm pretty sure that I like you.
Oh, that's very sweet.
So March is fully booked. So booking for April at the moment. So if anybody would like to get involved, and if you have a little product or a service to plug, then you are very welcome to do that as well. So the replay will be available on my podcast later on when I get around to loading it. So feel free to share with your friends if you think anybody would find our chat today interesting, and why would they not, because it's been an absolute delight. So Helen, thank you for joining me. It's been lovely.
Yeah, I've had a great time, and thanks for all the really great comments as well that we've had, because I think, you know, as a community, it's about us in the legal sector just all doing our little bit to bring about the change we want to see. So yeah, thanks for joining, everyone.
It's been lovely, and thank you so much for your support as always. So over and out from us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Thanks, Becky.